So today is part 2 of our lighthouse, our first. This is the whole lighthouse completely done. Our first class, which we did last week, we painted the outbuildings and the sky only. So today we're going to paint the lighthouse and the rocks, the rocky shore. So today for colors, black, and we have gray, a little bit of green for the grass that's growing at the top near the outbuildings. And a lot of the colors that we put in the background and in our houses are going to show up just very faintly on our lighthouse. Hopefully everybody's ready with their skies done and their outbuildings done. And I'm looking forward to finishing this. So it's been a pleasure to give you another original. So I hope you enjoy that. So we'll need a couple of buckets of water, right? And as I said, I'm not advertising. It's just, that's what's the name on the container. Some paper towel, always just to tap off your brushes. And in brushes, I have anywhere from a 0 to a 6. So my biggest one is the 6, and I do have a 0. I will use the 0. It's really fine. You can see hardly any bristles on there at all. This is the 6 compared to the 1. So quite a big difference. And if you're not confident to really draw or paint fine lines with black paint, then I encourage you to go ahead and bring a fine liner, a marker, if that's what works for you, or even a watercolor pencil, if you have any of those, because that's still watercolor paint. So and for the rocks, if you have a card, a used gift card of some sort, even if you want to bring your health card or whatever you've got, a little card. We're just looking for a little edge just to make some rocks. So I'll teach you how to do the rocks. That's kind of cool. So with that, I'm just going to start into getting ready for art class. We'll just take 3 deep breaths. And with that deep breath, we'll just hold our breath momentarily, just for a second. Find something in the room that makes you smile, makes you happy. So we'll just get ourselves ready. We'll take 3 deep breaths in, hold our breath at the top, really take a deep breath and then release, so that we really open up the area, and we'll release that, and then we should be good to go. So let's take our first deep breath in and hold it and smile. I know it's a lot to do in a second. Find something you like to make you smile and release. Really open up that area. We hold a lot of tension there. Second deep breath in and hold it and release. And our third deep breath in and hold it for a second. Find something to smile at, makes you feel warm inside, and release. Really open up this area. So not to hurt yourself, but maybe give yourself a little bit of a massage if you feel tight in this area. We hold a lot here. So there we have our lighthouse, nice and crisp and white. We have our outbuildings, we have our rocks, and we have our grass. So we'll start with the rocks first. If you want to get a marker, if your hands aren't steady to do any of the fine lines, then go ahead and do it with a marker. If you're content with a small brush, I have a 0. I think it says right on here somewhere, it's a 0. So there's the 0 marked right on the brush. I don't know if I can hold that closer. No, it'll get blurry. So there's a 0 on there anyways. So I'm going to use that for the fine lines in the window and for around the lighthouse. But for now, we're going to start with these rocks. And for the rocks, I'm going to use my larger brush. This is the number 6 brush. And I'm going to do wet paint on dry. I'm starting with black paint, but I'm going to change that tone from black to gray. So I don't want it completely black. I'm going to thin it out, thin it out, thin it out, thin it out. I want it to be gray. There's my gray, just by adding water. So I'm going to just paint the rocky area in gray. And it's got some ups and downs in there. So we'll just have some fun painting that. When I come to my lighthouse, whoops. When I come to my lighthouse, I'm just going to paint the gray right down the side, just leaving that white, that lighthouse white. And you can see I don't even need it to be particularly even in tone. If I have lights and darks, that's okay. I'm just looking to get that gray on there to start with. And it looks like I have a little bit of pooling at the bottom. This is where the paper towel comes in handy. I'll just touch the bottom of my canvas and it will pick up the excess gray that's on there. Just because it's on an easel. If you're not working on an easel, you might not have that issue. And I'm going to take a little bit darker gray, just less water. And I'm just going to put a few marks of gray in and amongst for my rocks. So where I have my gray, my lighter gray, and then I put this dark gray on top. So it's kind of haphazard. And I'm going to use my credit card while it's still wet and just carve some little areas with my credit card. So I'm not looking for perfect markings, but I'm looking for something that starts to look like a rocky shore. So you can add a little bit extra, move it around just with your card. Careful not to cut your canvas. So I'm just looking if I add less water now and a little more paint onto my rock area. And then I use my card and I'll just start to pull little sections just to make it look like a rocky shore. So it takes a little bit of practice. You can see there's darks and lights and some crevices there now that weren't there before. And that's just pulling the paint into sections, clearing off from a little bit here and there. But so that looks a little bit like a rocky shore. I want to carry that right to my lighthouse. I don't want it to look like there's a divide. I'm going to add just a little bit of dark in that area and just bring some of it towards the lighthouse. Now, once this is a little bit drier, you can come back. We'll come back in and we'll add a few more details to this, but let's just let that dry a little bit and we'll move over to the other side. So again, I'm starting with a light gray, just getting that color on there, going right down the side of the lighthouse. And I'm on a bit of an angle still. So I've got pooling of water. I don't want too much down the bottom. Use my paper towel. come back with a little bit darker gray, just pop that in. And then I'll use my credit card or my gift card, whatever it is you're using. And I'm just, if it's too wet, I might have to wait a second. Sometimes it needs to be a certain level of dryness. And then I'll just pull a little bit of that color. And again, I'm going to go a little bit darker again. Use my card. Pull, get some lines in there. And as you're doing this, if it feels like you're starting to stress on it, it's like, oh, I'm not getting this right, or it's not perfect. This is not about being perfect. This is about being with like-minded people, trying something new, exploring to see what different techniques work. If the credit card works for you, great. If it's not working for you and you want to try it on a separate piece of paper later, that's fine. Just take a deep breath, smile, and let it go. Just breathe out. This is just a piece of paper. So let's move next to the grass. So we have some grass growing right at the top of our rocks, right in front of the outbuildings. So I'm using Sap Green. If you don't have Sap Green, if you have Hooker's Green or just a deep green or any other green that you've got, go ahead and use that grass or use that green for grass. So right on top, we're just going to fill in on top of our rocks, just give the look of grass. So you can see I'm just holding my brush to the side and just doing little flicks to give that upward look of grasses. So I'm filling in at the bottom, or right where the rocks are, just with Sap Green. And this, again, this is wet paint on dry. So right to the side of the lighthouse, still keeping that nice straight line with the lighthouse, and then doing those sideways motions with the brush to give that look of grass. All of your grass isn't to be exactly the same color. If you have lights and darks in there, perfect. That's what grass is, a variety of different colors. And while it's wet, we'll go back to the card. So using the card, pulling in upward motions, we can get some looks of grass. And if your grass isn't wet enough to move when you pull it with the credit card, just add a little bit of extra paint with water, not too much, but a little bit. So you can see I've got some lights and darks in there. And then with my credit card again, or my gift card, I'm just going to start to pull up, and I get some of those nice little white little yummy lines that it pulls the paint right out. That's okay. So you can see there's some spots. When I did this, it took the paint right out. That's okay. Remember, with grass, grass grows all different directions. It crosses over. It doesn't always go straight up and down. And once you have that grass done, we can go back and just put a few little dark sections of grass here and there, just a few little markings, just so it's not quite so perfect. And so you want a combination of light and dark, and you want those grasses to go in all different directions. So we'll move from this side of the lighthouse to the other side of the lighthouse. Now up this side of the lighthouse, this is that has a tone of blue from sky. So we only want to put the grass just to the bottom, just at the bottom of that house. Whoops. And so we'll just put a little darker green in there. Again, this is wet on dry. And I'm going to use my credit card or my gift card, whatever you're using. Just start to pull up some of those grasses. So they'll go all different directions, not just one way. So if we go back to the rocks just for a moment, down below should be fairly dry, if not completely dry. And with a fresh black and just some really small markings, I'm just going to look for a few spots in my rocks, but I just want to add a few little lines here and there. These could be cracks in between rocks or little spaces. And if when you put it on, it looks a little too stark, you can use a little bit of water on a dampened brush and just soften those out. Just by touching with a damp brush, not a wet brush. You don't want it to run really. You just want to soften the edges. So we can set that credit card or gift card aside if you're finished with that. If you want to use it again to work on your rocks some more, that's fine. But for now, we're done with that process. So now we're going to start to work on the lighthouse itself. So I'm going to the very top of the lighthouse where I have a single post, like an antenna. So with straight black paint, more paint than water, fairly dry. I'm going to just paint that straight. There we are. Okay, so that's as far as I got, was to paint that oval. So if you wanted to use a highlighter or marker or watercolor pencil or pencil crayon to do that, that's fine. I'm going to use this 0 pointed brush and black paint. So I'm painting that antenna and I'm painting the attachment for the antenna on top. my little sonar device, I suppose, detection for the boats. And below that is just a single line going across. It's not actually attached. It's just sitting there. So if I put that close, you'll see just a single line. So far we have what looks like the top of a Indian castle. So, and then I'm going to outline my roof just using my black brush and black, or my brush and black paint. And I'm using less water and more paint. So all I've done is outline, and I want to outline that cap on the ridge. And I'm going to outline the ridge underneath. This is the outer side of the lighthouse. I'm still using black, more paint than water. So if you are getting clumpiness on your black brush, if you hold your brush onto your canvas, if you put it right on there and twist to move, all you're looking for is paint on the tip of your brush. And to practice, you can just see how fine of a line you can do just by using the tip of your brush. And you're almost not touching the canvas. So very light touch. So going into our drawing again, we're going to draw these 5 lines coming down from the top of the roof down just to the base. So we're only going to the base of the lighthouse. So here's the base. I'm just drawing that. We're just putting a little dot. So visually, I know I want to come from the top down to that line. Again, the top down to that line. Now in the center, I only want to draw my line from the center down. I don't want a line to be in this section. Because this is coming from the back, these are coming from the front. And this is coming from the side down to that dot that I drew. So again, if you need to, take a deep breath, smile, drop your shoulders. Remember, it's just a piece of paper. Try to get the paint on the very tip of your brush, and we'll start to create the railing. So here's my outer railing. My outer railing on the other side. There is a piece that goes from the back. This is actually coming from behind. And then we'll do that arch for the top. right around to the other side. And we'll carry on, do the middle of that railing. So you can see I'm just going halfway and then taking a breath and then going the other half. And then we'll do the foot, the kick plate or the bottom underneath our railing. Again, I'm just going halfway. If I need to get fresh paint, put some more paint on the tip of my brush, fine. But I'm not trying to do it all in one fell swoop. I'm just going to take my time. Below this is a white spot left in our lighthouse. So I'm going to leave that section below white. And then I'm going to outline the second rim of my lighthouse. So again, just going halfway. Going the other half. And then finishing the other side. Now the way the light hits at the corner or the edge underneath, I have a shadow. So I'm going to fill that in black. Just on this outer ridge. Just this little ridge right here. And if I want, I can just put a little tiny shadow on the other side. But it's a lot smaller. It's just a different view. So in order to let that dry a little bit so we don't muck anything up, we'll move from there down to the windows. So my windows, they're also black. So if you have a marker, if you have a brush, whatever you're deciding to use, we're going to outline the whole window. Very fine black line around the whole window. And again, if you need to, using your brush, if you're getting clumping on your brush, if you use that twist motion, just twirl your brush and you only want the paint on the tip. And just to see if you've got it on the tip, you can just almost not touching your canvas, really light, just do really fine lines just to practice. So with black paint on the tip, we're going to do the center frame of the window. We'll paint that, and we'll paint all the panes, the little lines in between the panes. So different brushes have different numbers, but this is the smallest one that I think you can buy, even smaller than this, but this is a very fine point. So now let's fill in some shadowing at the top of that window. And down this the one side. We're only doing one side of this window because that's where our light is coming from. It's where our shadow would be. So just down the one side, we're just creating the look of a shadow. And so again, just take a deep breath. We're going to work on the next window. So if you need to, just twirl your brush just to get the paint at the very tip. Practice if you need. Get some really fine lines. This is again straight black paint. We're going to do the next window. We'll do the outside of the frame. And we'll do the panes right down from the center at the top, right down to the bottom. And just put those, just paint those panes in. And we're halftime, so I'm going to read our card for halftime while some of you, I think, are catching up. So this is for inspiration. It says, a divine power has woven every moment into the intricate tapestry of life to help guide our spiritual progress. Trust in that power and move through life with confidence and humility. Take care to channel energy in and energy out today. Strive for balance. So a divine power has woven every moment into the intricate tapestry of life to help guide our spiritual progress. Trust in that power and move through life with confidence and humility. That's by Radhanath Swami. Take care to channel energy in and energy out today. Strive for balance. So back to my black paint. We're looking on window number 2. Our shadow is on the opposite side. So it's on the right-hand side, where up above it was on the left. So we're doing our shadow all the way down to the bottom. So we're looking and we have more of a shadow on one side than the other. That's why we have a little bit more shadow on the right-hand side. It's just the way that the light is. So I'm switching to a number 2 brush, and I'm using black paint, but I'm thinning it out. It's not as light as I started off with for the rocks, but it's still a gray, not a black. So I'm going to use this gray color and paint my roof. So I'm only painting the top of the roof in this color. And it is a roof and it gets all kinds of weather. So it doesn't have to be perfect in tone and texture. If it's lighter or darker in areas, that's fine. It has markings, maybe a bird hit it. Who knows? And then a little bit lighter texture or tone color underneath. I'm going to leave a little square for my light. So this is my lighthouse light. A little square. I'm leaving it white in there. And with this same light gray color, I'm going to paint the base of my lighthouse. So at not down below, but where the railing is, I want to leave the outside of my railing where the sky is coming through. I want to leave that with sky color. I'm only doing the center section. So I'm only painting this section gray, but I'm leaving the outside sections where the sky shows through. So I'm just tapping off a little bit. It's a little bit dark. I want to just lighten it up just a little. So I'm just using my brush just to absorb a little bit of that darker paint. And with just a damp brush, it doesn't have any paint on it. I've cleared it off and I've tapped it off on my paper towel. So it's only a damp brush. I'm just going to start and pull some of the color that's already there with the black. So it should turn out a gray color just from a damp brush. I'm just painting that little ring underneath. So it's just a light gray color and I haven't added any paint to my brush, just a damp brush to move the outer edges. And I can do the same down below, just with a damp brush. I'm just moving that color along. So the colors that we've used in the rest of the picture, we had a little bit of red up here. We had some yellow up here in the sky. We've got a little bit of a greenish color. We've got some blues and some ochre. We're going to pull some of those colors. So even the green that I used, if I take this green that I used from the grasses, and I just take just a wisp of that color, I can take some of that color and run it along my lighthouse. So it's just a wisp of a color, but you can see if I hold it close, it's on my lighthouse. Just a little bit of that wispy green from bottom to top. Very, very faint. Next color, I've got a little bit of ochre. So this is my ochre color, and I'm just using my wide number 6 brush, and this is wet on dry. So I'm going to take that ochre and I'm going to thin it really, really even, just add a little bit more water. I only want the touch of color showing up on my lighthouse. We had ultramarine blue. So if I take ultramarine blue and thin that out, I can take some of that ultramarine blue and run it down my lighthouse. So I only want traces of it. I'm not looking for a solid color. I think we also had some red in the sky. So if I take red, I've got a little bit of red, And I can run some red down my lighthouse. And I only want traces of it. I don't want a whole lot. I just want to give a little bit of reflection of what's in my artwork, also reflecting. So it's starting to pull all those colors together. We had some yellow. So I'm going to take some of that yellow and pop that onto my lighthouse as well. I'm still leaving a lot of white. And if anything happens and you feel the color's too strong, if it's overpowering the other ones, you can just use a little bit of clean water on your brush and just lift some of that off. So very gently rubbing on that color with a dampened brush, and it will pull that color. And with a damp brush, the color has no choice but to move. Now this lighthouse has a little bit of weathering. So around the windows, sometimes there's a little bit of cracking. So I'm just going to put a little bit of mark at the bottom of my window, just a little bit of cracking. You can also put a little bit at the top. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, a few little lines. Not to overdo it, just a little bit. And if you put more than you like, if you use a dampened brush, you can soften that up or lift it or move it. So watercolor can be very forgiving that way, that you can lift and move things and soften the edges. So there we have our lighthouse. If I want to add, I might add just a little bit more color coming down, just a little bit deeper. And what's left to do with your zero brush or your marker, or however you want to sign your art, you'll sign your art wherever you like. I'm choosing to put it down at the bottom of my lighthouse. So do remember to sign your art, it's important. Bye-bye, thank you.